Good morning, everybody. I've had a few people ask me about box plots in regards to the context in exercise 2H. What we're going to do is we're going to look at question 7 from the textbook, and we're going to explain some of the things as they go along. So it says here, the following table gives the price for units sold in a particular suburb in 1 month. Now these are multiplied by 1,000, so it's $356,000 and $1.625 million. You are asked to create a box plot using your CAS calculator. So if we are using our our Casio class pad. So on our class pad, I've entered the data here already. And then what I need to do is I need to go to set graph, setting, and then I need to make sure that the type listed is med box. I then also need to make sure that I have ticked the showing outliers button. So again, set graph gets you to this window here, and you have to make sure that med box is selected for type and the outliers are listed as ticked. So once I hit that, I then press draw, and then I should get a graph like this. Now, the thing about this graph is that what happens is that when you draw it, it indicates on it that there's an outlier present. So it's all the way up there. All right, so if we go to analysis, calc one variable, and we hit OK, it runs down all the important values that we need. So for a box plot, remember you need the minimum, the maximum, the Q1, the Q3, and the median. All right, so what we've done here is it's given us the minimum 356, which makes sense because the numbers, it's all in order. The maximum is 1625. We have our median at 579, and we have Q1 and Q3. All right, now what it doesn't give us is how do we calculate what our IQR is, and how do we calculate an outlier. All right, now looking at our data here, if I press this button here, it brings up the stat graph and the little plus sign, and I can press left and right and it will move along all the important information. So there's our minimum, 356, 147.5, 579, 820 is our Q3. Now what it's done there is it's given XC as 1180. Now if I go through my data, that is the second highest number that I have. But if I click into my graph and go to the highest one, it gives my max value as 1625, but it is not attached to the rest of my box plot. That means that the 1625 has been determined to be an outlier. All right, and an outlier is something that would be considered to be too far away from the rest of the data, that it is now weird. Now, if I go back into my graph and I change the settings and I turn off the show outliers and I draw it again, now you can see that my graph has come back and that whisker on the end is really, really stretched out. When your box plots have a whisker that is really, really stretched out like that, that probably means one of your pieces of data is an outlier and is making everything weird. That is why we have that. Now, to actually determine where your outlier point is, we have to go back and we have to change the setting. So we'll turn the outliers on. So first things first, what we need to do is we need to determine where our fences are. So we have an upper fence and a lower fence. All right. To find the fences, however, what I actually need is our IQR. And if you guys remember, we figured out, remember, the IQR happens to be Q3 minus Q1. I'll use something a little bit less glittery for the rest of it. All right, and that gives us our IQR. Then what we need to do is we need to find the fences. So we have our upper fence and our lower fence. And these are calculated using a formula. All right, so the upper fence is equal to Q3 plus 1.5 times the IQR. All right, that gives us our upper fence value, and our lower fence value is Q1. Yes, I know I'm using a black pen. And I know that my lower fence is equal to Q1 minus 1.5 times IQR. So in the case of this document here, what we need to do is we need to figure out where is Q1 and where is Q3. And for that, we go back to our CAS. And we open up our trace Q1. Our Q1 is listed as 447.5, and our Q3 is listed as 820. Now, if you use your CAS, you'll find that 820 minus 447.5 is equal to 372.5. So on here, we remember that we have that value there. So 372.5. And now we can calculate our upper fence and our lower fence. So Q3 is going to be 820 plus, just remember we're working out the upper fence 1.5 times 372.5, and we go back to our CAS. So that's 820 plus 1.5 times 372.5. And we get a value of 1,378.75. So 1,378.75. Highlight that for you so we know what we're doing. And then we have our lower fence, which is going to be Q1 minus 1.5 times 3. So it's 447.5. This is LF. Minus 1.5 times 3. Technical difficulties, please apologise. Alright, so we'll go down here. 372.5, and that comes out to be 447.5 minus 1.5 times 2.5. It comes out to negative 111. Alright, now the fact that the lower fence is negative doesn't mean anything. It just means that it's not possible for there to be a lower outlier. So minus 1.25. Now, what that means is that anything that is above my upper fence is an outlier. It means that anything less than negative 111 is also an outlier. So in the case of our data here, we look at our data, we go, okay, well, there's nothing that is less than negative 111. I don't know about you, but I've never seen someone try and sell a house for negative money. Not unlike the price of oil these days. Apparently it's negative $40 a barrel, meaning they're paying you $40 to take it off them. Must be nice. But the upper fence is only 1,378, which means that we do have one value above, which is 1.625 million, which means that that would be marked as an outlier, and then 1180 would become my new maximum at the end of the whisker on my box and whisker plot. Again, which is demonstrated by our CAS right there. All right, I hope that answers your question.